in the history of mankind, there have never been a developed country that was ever built by violence and hooliganism. Hooliganism and vandalism has never built any progressive and moral society. Coming up, on the 2nd of May 2025, just recently, thousands of EFF protesters marched to an Afrikaner settlement called Kleinfontein. One of their grievances, of course, is Kleinfontein white-only settlement undermines democracy. Therefore, it should be destroyed, it should be demolished, and it should be closed down.
Met apartheid weg! Weg met apartheid weg! Voetsek Kleinfontein, voetsek! Voetsek Kleinfontein, voetsek! Fighters, I've been asked to say a few words. I've got a short and sharp message for the racists of Kleinfontein. When we marched here, I saw here at the gate, they say, ons God, ons nasie, ons eie. We want to say to them, you cannot claim God as your own, especially when you are a racist. You cannot claim this nation as your nation. This country belongs to all of us.
Well, personally, I don't have any problem with EFF's grievances about Orania, Kleinfontein, whatever they're complaining about. But my problem is the approach. Okay, South Africa is the country that is being controlled by the rule of law. We have rules and laws that control this country. Obviously, if you have some grievances about some certain issues, or if you're not happy about something, there are some legal doors that you have to knock to, and of course, voice out your grievances. You don't just throw your toys out of the cart just because you are not happy about certain things or certain issues that are happening in the country. If EFF was not happy about Kleinfontein settlement or white-only settlement, they should have gone to Tshwane municipality to hand over their memorandum. Just focus on just going to the municipality and hand over their memorandum. I see no reason of them proceeding or going straight to Kleinfontein to march at the gate of Kleinfontein. Why did they do that? By the way, MK Party shares almost the same sentiment with EFF when it comes to Kleinfontein white-only settlement. But look at the approach of the MK Party compared to the approach of EFF. Now, we are having two logics here, thanks to Juju Malema, who brought up these two logics. Now, we are having a superior logic by EFF against a wheelbarrow logic by MK Party. So it's two logics, it's A and B, it's superior logic and wheelbarrow logic, two columns, column A and column B. Let's start with a superior logic and listen to Kalni House when they were starting to march to Kleinfontein. Listen to him here.
Well, I get the impression that there's a reaction from the white community of Kleinfontein. And of course, the police have to manage a careful balance, not to simply react to the fear of these whites. That would be wrong. Because it is not correct to act as if the EFF will not behave in a balanced way and in a very disciplined way. We are known that our marches are disciplined. We are known that we are an organization that when we march, we do it with discipline. So this display of force is really unnecessary. It is not going to be necessary to deploy any of this force. We are not here to be directly confrontational. We are here to highlight. But we are at the same time also very principled.
By the way, Kalnihaus said these words when he realized the heavy presence of the police at Kleinfontein monitoring the whole march of the EFF, something he was not happy about. He was not impressed at all. Then EFF protesters spotted an AfriForum board, the sign, and they went for it.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get forces to do it. Yeah, the forces will sort it. Hey, chief, must delete that. I'm checking.
Yeah, well, that sign, that AfriForum sign said, "I am not going anywhere." And of course, if you thought they were done, they went for that Afrikaans writing they found on the gate. The ons God, ons mense, ons what. They started peeling that off the wall.
There we go.
And this is the beginning of the end of apartheid, of Kleinfontein. It even signals the beginning and the end of GNU here in South Africa.
En die hartseerste, vanoggend het hier gestaan, ons God, ons volk en ons eie. Dit is alles afgebreek en vertrap.
Then Nkululeko Dunga stood up and started uttering statements that are not factual. That's because he didn't go prior to Kleinfontein to gather facts first. Talk to them, find out why are these Afrikaners isolating themselves like that? What is actually happening? So that by the time he stands on people's heads, he utters all facts.
Then you are asking, why is it so important for the EFF to come to Kleinfontein, a whites-only establishment, where they do not want black people to occupy?
Number one, he says the Kleinfontein is a white-only establishment, which is not true. Kleinfontein is Afrikaner cultured establishment. If you are a white British, for instance, and you want to stay or to settle in Kleinfontein, those Afrikaners won't allow you to stay there. Why? Because you don't share cultural values with them. You are not an Afrikaner. You don't speak Afrikaner, you speak English. The fact that you are white is immaterial. So Kleinfontein is a Afrikaner cultured settlement, not white.
Where they do not want black people to stay in houses there. But the very same black people are the ones who are working here. So they are good enough to work here, but they are not good enough to stay here in accordance to a white person.
And he continues to make yet another false statement. He says, Kleinfontein Afrikaners don't want black people there, but they want black people to work for them. That's not true. Afrikaners in Kleinfontein don't have black people working in there, whether as a gardener or as a cleaning lady or as a nanny. All those jobs that are known to be done by black people, Afrikaners do everything themselves there. There is no black person working there.
We're here to tell them that that is the same racism that we're calling against, because we can never allow an area to be a white-only area where black people are only subjected to sweat, where black people are only subjected to slavery, but cannot reside in those areas.
Just when you thought you just had enough of Nkululeko Dunga's misinformation, an EFF lady stood up and totally distorted South African history. Listen to this.
Down with Kleinfontein, down! Our problems started in 1913 when our Jan van Riebeck came and took our land from our grandfathers. And the ANC in 1994 did not do justice. We reconciled with people that were unapologetic. That's why namhlanje sithola amabhunu akhona ukuzisikela umzimba.
And boy, oh boy, did they trash the place. The litter they left behind when they were gone.
Once again, the rights of the majority of our people, majority of the black, have a problem. They've made themselves an enemy of business. Equally, even out these 7 demands of the EFF, and this is the beginning of the end of apartheid, of Kleinfontein. It even signals the beginning and the end of GNU here in South Africa. To show you that the EFF remains committed to black people, the EFF said that will never form part of any government that includes the Freedom Front, that includes the Democratic Alliance.
Stand here.
So this should signal even our
Why is taking me a
not
picture?
only just here, but also in...
Where were you when I'm from? Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Software's kitchen, the moyen. Thank you, fighters. If you didn't go, I'm available to join.
Kleinfontein gemeenskap na die EFF optog met swart sakke in die hand. En kyk waarmee is hulle besig.
Now, guys, remember, MK Party is also against this Kleinfontein Afrikaner settlement. Okay? But now let's look at MK Party's approach to this issue. We have seen the superior logic. Now let's look at the wheelbarrow logic. Check this out.
MK Party Chief Whip in the National Assembly, Mzwanele Manyi, went on an oversight fact-finding mission on the Kleinfontein community.
We hear that Africans like me, as an example, are not welcome here if you don't subscribe to the culture, the Afrikaner culture. So those are the things that we hopefully will clear for us, that if you don't subscribe to the Afrikaner culture, you're not welcome here. Maybe if you don't subscribe to Christianity, if you are maybe African spirituality, you are a person that does upahla and all of that, that's not the kind of thing that's done here, and all of that. So those are all the things that we hear from out there. So we thought, let's just come here and hear from the horse's mouth and be very clear with us as to what happens here. Ken Mzwanele Manyi settle in Kleinfontein and so on. So what are the issues? If you just help us, because the impression created is that this is like only an Afrikaner enclave. If you don't subscribe to Afrikanerdom, you are not welcome here. So we're not sure whether that is true or not true. So we just thought, let's just clarify.
Just like in Orania, the community has built a self-sustaining infrastructure, including its own water purification plant and storage system. And their food is produced from the land they own. However, the Gauteng High Court found the settlement to be illegal.
The slogan of this constitution is, which we all support, is unity in diversity. And together we can do more. So that's not a question of exclusion, it's a question of differentiation. And I want you to consider accepting that. Let us rather respect cultural communities that want to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient, but they don't want to exclude themselves from the rest of South Africa.
The chairperson of the Kleinfontein Board of Directors, Rian Ginnis, alleges that the South African Constitution allows for the development of Kleinfontein. However, the board is strict that all who aspire to live in Kleinfontein must subscribe to the Afrikaner culture and customs, as the culture must be preserved 100%.
Unless you do that, you will not fit in here and you will not be welcomed here, because it's an Afrikaner cultural community. And remember now that we want to protect our culture and build it out. We want to let it grow out. We use boreholes for water. We currently receive 0 services from Tshwane, except for roads, our roads when I go to work or when we go to work and so on. That's something that Tshwane delivers to us. But the rest we do ourselves. Refuse removal, everything we do ourselves. And we are very proud of what we've achieved. We're by no stretch of the imagination, to use your word, we're perfect. We're not a perfect society.
When questioned on the dilution of the Afrikaner practices, the board members insisted that their children wouldn't marry outside of the culture.
And a lot of what happened at Kleinfontein yesterday was exactly that. The EFF were outsmarted by the MK, who in a very professional manner did visit Kleinfontein prior to the EFF march. And I think that was also some of the motivation behind the EFF's copying of the MK visit. However, they chose a confrontational way instead of dialogue, and I would like to say civil dialogue.
And I think we should start with the MK Party, Mr. Manyi, because you did go about on this fact-finding mission. Let's talk to the genesis of it. What led you to wanting to do this? Why, and what is it that you primarily found?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this opportunity. First, I must just thank the MPLs of the MK Party in Gauteng. They raised this issue with the Premier on their Q&A on Rule 130 to deal with the issue of Kleinfontein, to make sure there are no apartheid enclaves as we perceive it, as it were. So that was the first thing. So followed to that, we then, as the MK Party in Parliament, were, as a government in waiting. By the way, it's important for everybody to know that we are not an opposition party in the sense of the word of the DA, that we're a number two, that we're in opposition trying to correct the ANC, whatever they're doing. We are not in that space. We're a government soon to be. We're a government in waiting. We're contesting number one. So for us as the MK Party, part of this was to talk to the stakeholders, to prepare them for us as the MK Party as we take over. And part of that was to look into the Constitution and look at some of the clauses which are not properly understood.
So, number one, MK Party went for fact-finding. Fact-finding. So that they get to this Afrikaner's mind. What made them to do what they did? What made them to isolate themselves? Okay? What motivated them to do what they are doing? Fact-finding first, so that we don't speak amiss. I think I like that. They even discovered that, okay, these guys are constitutionalists. That means these white people, these Afrikaners, all of them, in all of them, Kleinfontein, Orania, they discovered a loophole in South African constitution. So MK said, number three, let's check what does the Constitution of South Africa say about these segregations, these Afrikaner settlement, and beat them at their game. When MK decided to deal with this Kleinfontein issue and do the fact-finding, they understood that right now MK is busy on the ground with the by-elections. Let's not shift that focus. We rather choose delegates, choose certain people who are going to run with Kleinfontein and Orania issue. But they didn't shift from the bigger picture, which is by-elections. You can see now they are all over the country winning wards like crazy. They didn't wanna disturb that. They said, let's just choose delegates who are going to run with Kleinfontein and Orania issue all the way. Sadly, right now you can see how MK Party is dealing with this Kleinfontein issue. They are not all over the show. They are very focused on what is actually happening here. They are focused on a bone of contention, which is realizing that it's not about race, but it's about culture. And they know that it's not only about black people, because now it's all about these Afrikaners. They don't want black people. Aibo. It's not about black people, but it's all other races who don't succumb to Afrikaners' cultures and values. That's a wheelbarrow logic of the MK Party. My major concern now, guys, is this. EFF currently, guys, is not doing well by elections. Is not doing well at all. So really, there's no black person, South African black person, that would love to be associated with vandalism, hooliganism, and all kind of things that happened in Kleinfontein. No self-respecting black person would love to be associated with that. That's my major concern where EFF is concerned. As I said, guys, I'm not against what these two parties are fighting for. What I'm talking about here is the approach of these two parties. I'm not saying EFF should not fight Kleinfontein or should not fight Orania. It's up to them. My major concern is the approach. How does that approach benefit the people on the ground? Because EFF needs each and every vote right now. What do you think? Let me hear your comment below. And of course, if you are coming for the first time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.